Welcoming everyone. This is how we do it. We do it with laughter. We bring it in because that's what this is about. It's inspiration. It's passion. We were talking about creativity. We were talking about what inspires you, keeps you going, even through the muck, right? They say that the lotus flower grows out of mud. And that's what we're going to talk about. I see nothing but beautiful lotus flowers before me, and there's some mud in our paths, all of us. And so I'd like to talk about that and what inspiration, passion, and keep it goingness means to y'all. Y'all are all incredibly inspiring to me at a deep, deep level. So I just wanted to, first of all, welcome you and thank you for your time and hanging out here. This is going to be awesome. I'm absolutely pumped for this. So let's go around the room, introduce some folks if you don't mind. I was raised this way. So Serena Faith Masterson, if you don't mind. How are you?
I'm good. Are we going with the eldest first?
No, ma'am. We are going with I was raised to call you ma'am and to call on you to go first, please.
All right. So I have written a memoir about my journey of integration and healing. And what makes me make it through the mud is breath, is this infinite trust with this wisdom, this compassion, this higher consciousness that I am. You know, it's a moment to moment experience of staying in this now, feeling it, looking at it, being with it. Even when it's uncomfortable and it's difficult, I stay present as best I can. I continue to surrender and allow what is. Because, you know, I used to believe my mind that said, okay, this is how it's going to be and this is the way it should be. And if you do this, you're going to feel safe and you're going to feel good. Well, I discovered that that wasn't true. And so now, even when it's difficult, I take a breath. And I'm honest with myself. Wow, this is really a bugger. Mm. And I say to this essence that I am, fill me with the courage to keep showing up, the compassion, the wisdom, guide my every step. Because living on this planet is not a piece of cake. It really is not. It's challenging. And especially in the last 2 years since COVID happened, it's been a very different experience. And if I didn't have this connection to my core, to the essence of who I truly am, I would feel lost. Yesterday, I spoke at a business luncheon, and I'm always just me, you know, which is really a gift. I don't have to be on and be a certain way or pretend I'm feeling great when I'm not. And there were probably 60 people in the room, and it was a different atmosphere than this kind of experience where we all come together and we are like-minded. And I noticed when I was done that only about 5 people came up and spoke to me afterward. And I had to be still with that. And I realized what I talk about scares people, you know? It's like, can you be real? Can you sit in the presence of your discomfort, your pain, and allow it to move with your breath? And that's a big challenge for people. And I know that.
Your story, even from the like high vibe, we're all one, unity consciousness, Hitler went to heaven and we're okay with it because there's no hell. Like even from that perspective, I'm sitting here going, oh my gosh, what you went through. There's just stuff. There are still things, you know, that remind us, I suppose, that we're very human and we're here to have that very visceral experience. And it's through stories like yours that are not only heartbreaking, but the reason they're so inspiring is because they're so damn heartbreaking. So it's this direct launch in proportion to how screwed up everything was. You know what I mean? As far as a recoil goes. Louisa.
Well, I spoke about you yesterday. I said, well, there's this young man that I know, and I told him about the training I went through, and he said, oh, no, it's not training, it's torture. And I had to laugh when you said that to me when we did our interview, you know.
That young guy, that kid, he was from an older perspective.
Well,
It's
you're
so
the
funny
age of my
too.
kids, so.
Well, because it still matter. We still get it. We still give a shit. That's what it is I look at you and I'm like, oh, because there's a better way. And it is, and even again, from the higher perspectives and the higher understandings, it shows the chink in the armor that there's still humanity there. I guess that shows it. I mean, there's still things here that we have a passion to change and that we have a mission to. And it's stories like yours again, where I, especially for my younger man self, what was that? Almost a little over a year ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's also nice about having this show, because you can go back and I just leave my journey out there for everyone to check out. And I was like, what was I saying back then? But you learn and you grow. And so, yes, it is still something I think about, to be honest with you. When I talk about the heavy episodes, you're that. And it has to do with weight of burden on heart. Louisa Firethorne, I'm going to show your product off here, or your creation, rather. Apologies. While you're talking about it, because I don't think Serena's seen it yet.
Sure.
Okay. Boom. Check this thing out, dude. Oh my God. It's so cool.
Well, that's cool. You can do screen share.
Isn't that great? What a great time to be alive. Isn't this cool? So she built this damn thing. Louisa, tell us about it, please.
Okay, so the Sonosphere is a vibroacoustic therapy device. It's basically sound therapeutics, and I've done a lot of research in what's out there in terms of sound therapy and sound healing. Although I really try to stay away from the word sound healing. This is undoubtedly therapeutic in like 10 different ways, but the main functionality that we're using is that we have these 10 haptic transducers and under the platform that you're laying on, and they are tuned custom to your body, and we're looking for resonance modes that where resonance arises on the Sonosphere from having you on there. So everybody's session is unique, and there's a certain chord, certain set of frequencies that will create resonance modes and overtone harmonics on the Sonosphere when we use the transducers. And then on top of that, we layer an ambisonic sound system, which is ambisonic is surround sound plus the Z axis, which is above and below you. So it's a true sphere of sound, and you're in the middle. And what I'm working on right now, actually, at this desk, is working on lighting for the sphere that's you'll see like the copper sphere that's spinning around everything when you're in there. So that has a couple different functions. It has a grounding function for static electricity. It is a waveguide that helps like cinch the sound shape harder into a sphere. It helps cut off reflecting waves. And the final boss transformation of the copper sphere is that I am adding lights to the inside curvature, so that when you're in there and it's spinning, the LEDs are gonna be making a sphere of light around you too. And these are smart lights that are like controlled with this app, and I have like 50 different color modes that are sound sensitive. And so I'm really excited about this because I've been waiting to add this for a long time. So we're going to be able to add like color light therapy kind of to the session, and to customize even further the session for each person. So and then on top of those like functions, we have created an immersive sound space here. So we have like made a darkened room that's kind of like sensory deprivation, and we've put up galaxy wallpaper on the entire space, painted the floor black, and we do projected galaxy stars that are moving. So it's a very like relaxing environment, and we do sessions like for an hour to an hour and a half. And we also do targeted healing sessions where we can actually target certain organs with resonance. And when we target organs with the vibrational resonance, we can basically loosen up that organ. If it's hardened or you've got blockages. One thing that has been studied and proven over and over again is that vibroacoustic therapy improves circulation, but it's never been able to be targeted with low frequency vibrations. And so that's what we've created. I've created the Sonosphere to be able to use those low frequency vibrations to create standing waves and move the antinodes around so that they can target certain areas of the body. And those antinodes are what is doing the work of like pushing the meat around inside of you. And that is what feels amazing when it's happening. It's a really cool feeling, and it's hard to explain. But it's kind of like getting your insides massaged by sound waves. And nobody's done it this powerful before, because this was extremely cost preventative and like time preventative. Like, it was really hard to figure out how to resonate a whole person in a meaningful way. But we did it. So
something I've been meaning to ask you, do you do clockwise and counterclockwise on the rotation? Does that have an effect, or does that alter anything?
No, I mean, I have it going clockwise, or wait, maybe it's going anti-clockwise. Yeah, I think it goes anti-clockwise or something. And I have had some New Agers tell me that I have to make it go either way. But ultimately, I don't think it matters unless I was going to be doing some kind of magnetic field thing with it.
Yeah, like if you stack one and put like one going one way, one going the other, crank it up, time travel, right? It's time travel, Louisa. All right, in our time. I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. It's one of the most fascinating things. And your story, I mean, all the ways to find y'all is going to be linked below, but your story is fascinating as well. Just these are just all different kind of humans that we have here, different kind of people. And that's the thing, is it takes a lot of inspiration and passion to create this. And so we're going to come back to that. Wally, good to see you, man.
Ditto. Glad to be here.
How's life treating you?
Life is good. No complaints.
Well, again, I just wanted to compliment you on your work that you sent within Grasp, of course. And again, all the ways to find you linked below. Serena, your book, of course, I Am Serena. I've got this stack of books here from friends. And this is, again, the coolest life I can imagine. Because people just send me this stuff and they're like, hey, here's this amazing book that I did. It's full color. It talks about giants and crop circles and shit. No big deal. But it's absolutely fascinating. So good to see you, sir.
Glad to be here.
Well, tell us a little bit about you, man. What's your passion?
It's my turn. I believe Serena and I are about the same age. I was born in 56.
55.
55. Yeah, I read that. I'm in Virginia, in between Roanoke and Lynchburg. I guess my journey started by seeing a craft over my head, what we now call the white tic tac, literally over my head in 2016. And as a result of that, I got to meet some interesting people, including Reverend Michael Carter, and a bunch of other people. And as time has gone on since 2016, I have realized that I no longer am in the gate with my brothers and sisters who are basically stout Christians. I have left the gates of Western Christianity and have gone outside, and I'm on a path. And my path has been very enlightening. I have found many, many new truths. I will not be going back inside those gates, by the way. And Serena mentioned that this earth that we're on is quite challenging. And I did an interview with Barry Downing, who was the first preacher to declare that there were UFOs in the Bible. And he made a comment that this earth is a terrible testing place. And I totally agree with that. There's lots of choices we can make. There's lots of options. But I've come to find out that the purpose that I am here is soul development and to learn to love everybody. Love is what permeates the universe. And when I've stepped outside this gate, it's been such an awakening because I've really, like Serena has said, I've really learned about myself, who I am, what I'm doing, what I need to be doing, and really my purpose for being here. And so much of this, I hate to use the word stuff, but so much of this enlightenment that has come to me is just not taught in church or Sunday school. And the Bible no longer had answers for me. So, I want to be careful what I say because I have so many friends that can even challenge what I say. As you mentioned, it maybe scares them a little bit. They're not ready to accept some of the things I've said and have written about. But I tell you, we are spiritual beings. And we have a calling, each of us. Each of us are our own person, but we are here to develop our inner selves, our soul. And that's really what I'm into now. As I continue to go down this path, I realize, I've made some mistakes, but I've learned from them. And that's a good point, that I don't go backwards, always go forwards. And I don't live in the past, always live looking forward. And that's one of my mantras now. And I haven't seen the end of the path. I'm still learning as I go. And as I mentioned to Brandon, sometimes I even get answers before I have the questions to attach them to.
Oh yeah.
But I am just really into our conversation tonight because this stuff really resonates with me, and I'm kind of a newbie, but I'm really enjoying it, and I feel so much more at ease with myself and with life now than I did before. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways.
100%. One of the best mantras ever is I choose the happiness of this moment over the pain of the past. And that's one of the best things to get you rooted in that now moment. It's because I've made the, I guess, analogy before that, it's like standing next to having someone with depression or anything like that. Because depression is, I've heard it stated that depression is focused on the past. Anxiety is thinking too much about the future, or overconsumed about the future. Too much is subjective. But it's like you're standing next to a friend that's depressed and you're just like, can we move forward? Like, look at all the beautiful rainbows in front of us. And they keep turning around going, yeah, but my dad did this, or yeah, but I should have said this to that chick back there. Maybe we'd be happy and together and I wouldn't be unhappy. And it's like they're constantly looking back. I'm like, guy, like right here in front of us.
That just pulls you down. It pulls you down.
Exactly.
I don't want to be pulled down.
Exactly. It's the happiness of this moment.
Can I say something? In resisting the depression, it stays. What if, instead of resisting it, you sit with it and you let it come up as big as it needs to come up, and you stay in your core breathing? It will dissipate. It will integrate. That's why I am where I'm at today. I was severely depressed. I had PTSD. I mean, doing positive thinking only goes this far. If you've got depression and it's in the way of your life, if you've got these issues, it's by stopping and taking that moment or those moments or those days, however long, and being with you from a place of compassion. That's why, I'm so passionate about it, because I invite people, can you take the time to be with you, to not push your pain away, your trauma away? Then you can genuinely be in this moment without struggle. Sorry, I had to say it.
What? You have to, please, it's open forum. I love this. And this is, of course, that statement assumes that you've heard all the other conversations we've had about revisiting that 5-year-old version of you that felt unworthy and talking it through, and the quantum physics. I believe, Wally, we talked about this when you and I had and it's all lined up, that spooky action at a distance. You can tie so much science into just speaking with that younger version of yourself or that unhealed version of yourself as a metaphor, or even literally going back and seeing the little dinosaur bed sheets that you had, little posters on the wall, and sitting there with yourself and saying, hey, it's okay, and bring them to your now current understanding. Look how beautiful this place is. And that's where absolutely, and I'm grateful you brought it up, Serena. Gotta say it. John Paul Rice, man, it's good to see you. What's that necklace, dude? It looks cool. I keep looking at it.
So this is organite that Jay Parker, a satanic ritual abuse survivor, made for me in, I think it was 2018.
Wow.
And yeah, he put all the gemstones, the earth stones in there. It's aluminum, copper, brass. And I wear it here almost all the time. The first time I put it on, it actually caused me to be kind of a little dizzy because I think it was the magnetic field that it was activating. But I wear it. He has a website called Center Path Radio. He is donation based only. He is disabled. He lives in Philadelphia. His family grew up in Delaware, in Arden, next to the Bidens. His story is amazing. Like, he shouldn't be here. He was hung upside down, I think, when he was a child and electrocuted with a car battery for 18 hours straight by his mother and father, who made him cry out to God for help so that to prove that God didn't exist.
Yep.
Anyway, this is what that means is for him, and what he is a child of God who renounced all of it when he was 7 years old in their faces, and they knew Spirit was speaking through him, and they were all frightened to death because they know that voice. My story, where this comes in, is I was in Hollywood for 20 years. I was an actor, and I became a producer. I worked in the financial industry for the 1/10 of 1% at a bank of the stars. I don't know how my life has unfolded because I don't have a college degree. Between the ages of 17 and 21, I made $4.5 million for my father and his company. My whole life has kind of been lived in reverse. I think probably like most people who have some kind of come to Jesus or awakening moment of crisis. I've been studying my childhood for over 20 years. I don't need to get into that story right now, but it brought me to understand the truth behind what we define as mental health or mental illness through diagnosis. Actually, the same phenomena occurring in every single person on a distributive scale, from, let's just say, narcissistic behaviors being the symptom expressed of the withdrawal of care in the moment of the child's need. And it's where the child learns that love is pain, and it associates pain with that feeling of the child's projection because it's pure joy, it's pure love. And the foundation for all things, like what I want to do is I'm working with Ronald Bernard on a new financial system where it's backed by gold and silver. It's called the URA, and it's the United People Foundation. Be of Joy. It is going to be in 240 countries with a payment system service, and it's going to have a marketplace of ideas where the shareholders of the bank can vote on best ideas that they want to fund a portion of their shares to a business that, let's say, creates structured water or creates sound therapy healing. It's going to be international, and it's going to have millions of bank customers, and it will be able to be traded at no value lost because there's no interest involved. You can go to country without losing any money on the value chain of the URA. I've recently met Louisa because I'm interested in healing sound. I'm working with a husband and wife in the psychedelic acoustic world of music, psychedelic art, which actually can, as Louisa probably knows, stimulates deeper meditative states in the body and mind and can heal without doing drugs. So it's sort of like maybe a synthesized way, if you will. But they, their husband and wife couple, they got an entire library of intellectual property, and they want to start an organization that funds new artists in this space and uses the sales of their artwork to fund the organization and bring tools to new artists in this space to create sound healing in a virtual world where you can go in and do meditation, you can do events, you can have artwork galleries, this sort of thing, and more. So that's it. I mean, there's more, but that's kind of what I'm doing now.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. And again, how it dovetails with, see, and then the Phi Tribe, see how it all click. It's fascinating with this. And so, of course, it all makes sense. Mark Gober, dude, good to see you.
Brandon, thanks so much for having me, especially with this group. There's so many important topics discussed already, and I've been taking notes on things that I want to bring up. So for those of you who don't know me and my background, I'll just go through that quickly, and then I'll let you know where I am currently in terms of my headspace and the big questions that I have, which I think are very relevant to this group. I have a very mainstream background. I graduated from Princeton in 2008, went into investment banking. So I was in New York during the financial crisis. I did not have a spiritual orientation. If anything, I was an atheist or agnostic. I thought there was no such thing as a soul or any spiritual dimension. I thought that was all superstition that we had transcended as society. So I was very much in that space. I left investment banking in 2010 and joined a firm where I spent 10 years and became a partner, a Silicon Valley-based firm advising companies with technology. So that's where I come from. I had a dramatic shift in 2016. Initially listening to podcasts and then reading a lot of science, which challenged my previously nihilistic worldview. And I realized that I was wrong in terms of the way I looked at life and that we are inherently spiritual beings. There's a lot of scientific evidence and anecdotal evidence for that. So I've been on a journey since then. I ended up actually leaving my firm at the end of 2019 because I wanted to pursue this stuff full time. But long story short, I've now written 5 books which span the topics of the brain and consciousness, life after death, reincarnation, spiritual awakening, political and economic theory, UFOs, the Great Reset, and generally trying to reconcile dark light, good evil. My book, An End to Upside Down Contact, which is the 4th book that came out last summer, that book mentions John, Ronald Bernard. I quote Jay Parker. I mentioned Serena and your story, Serena. So I'm very aware of that, of those sorts of phenomena, mind control, ritual abuse, and very dark things. And I am still struggling to reconcile dark and light and how it all fits together. Even though I might be able to recite things to you intellectually based on what I've heard, I cannot reconcile it. I'm also really, I think the core of what's driven me since I started in 2016 was trying to understand, what am I doing here? What is this place? And who am I really? Because I think the answers to those questions inform what we do in life. And I'm more confused than ever, I think, with regard to those fundamental questions, and therefore more confused than ever in terms of what I should be doing in my life. And I always feel this way after a book comes out. My most recent book on the Great Reset came out a few months ago, and I'm not sure what I want to do next. And one more thing that I'm really struggling with to reconcile is when I was studying spiritual awakening and just spiritual phenomena, psychic abilities and things like that in general, that was my early exploration. There were a lot of teachings and teachers who I really respected. And then with everything with COVID that happened, I felt like many of those people were unable to see through the deception for some reason. And it really confuses me because I'm wondering, are their teachings now invalid, or do they just have certain blind spots in other areas? And maybe they are very adept in certain areas. So that is something that I'm constantly struggling with because I feel like our society is bifurcated in terms of people who see through the deception and those who don't. And another thing that comes with that is a struggle with being able to relate to people, because I feel like the more one goes down the rabbit hole, the more difficult it can be to relate to people, especially coming from my networks of those who are just totally mainstream. I'm getting further and further away from that, so I struggle to be able to relate.
Mark, can I just say to you, you and I have to talk privately, because there's so many things I can talk to you about and share with you. Because like yesterday when I went to this luncheon and I was the main speaker and I left and I was like, I just really don't enjoy socializing, because I don't like talking inane subjects. I like genuine people. But I would really love to talk to you about some of these questions that you have from a place of sharing my experience and letting you feel my discovery. Does that make sense? Because I've lived the darkest dark. I've lived it. I not only saw it and experienced it from a place of stepping back, but I was a participant in it. And so I had to come home to me from a place of compassion. You see, I thought that I was bad, and there is no judgment from this realm of compassion, of higher consciousness. I know, because I'm living experience. I'm it. I've lived it all. I've done it all. I don't say that lightly. I have done everything in the realm of darkness. I was reared in a satanic cult, and MK Ultra, from the time I was 3 days old, they both started training me. I was forced to participate. I did what I had to survive, to stay sane. And believe me, when I began to unravel all that I had been a part of, the judgment, the self-hatred was huge. So when you were sharing just now, my heart was just flooding with love and compassion for you, because I know, I know the journey. It's not an easy journey to come out of mainstream and unconsciousness, and all of a sudden you're like, I don't fit. Wow. So I'd love to talk to you privately sometime.
Serena, I really appreciate that. I have one question for you, though, which I think will be valuable for the discussion. If I were to ask you a very big question, what would be your short answer to the following? What should we do in our lives?
Connect to your authentic self, period. Not the bullshit of this. We are not this. We are the spiritual being having a human experience. I know that today. I used to hear it and go, yeah. Okay, I'm soul. I am this soul person. But now I know it. I know it like I know I've got brown eyes and that I'm 68 years old. I know it so deeply within me that in the darkest and hardest of times, I just breathe. The other day, for about 4 days, I was working with memory, and I've always hated the thought of being an astronaut out in space, tethered with a small thing. It was like terrifying to me. And I kept sitting with this energy of, oh my God, I think I'll die. I'm so disconnected. Now, this was purposeful training for me. They told me that if I shared the secrets, I would be dead and alive at the same time. And of course, this was training with drugs and everything else. And I had to sit with this uncomfortable experience and breathe, knowing that the wisdom of me would bring it home for healing. And all I had to do was sit with it and breathe. So that's my answer. Connect to the authentic self, the one that said, hello, Mark, in 2016, and that you turned around.
What is it with 2016? Because that connects with me too.
Yeah.
And I'm also a bank manager in the past. So there's three bankers on here.
And I
don't
work
know
for a
that-
bank now. I
Oh
work for
no!
a
Oh
bank
no!
now.
And then
Well,
John's
Serena,
rewriting the whole game. I love it. Yeah.
I just quickly want to respond to that beautiful response, Serena. I have written things along those lines, and part of me feels it, but it's not 100% of me that feels the embodiment of what you say. So I can intellectualize what you're talking about, but it's not a full sensation.
That's why I'd like to talk to you to help you to connect with the part of you that doesn't believe, or it's an aspect of you. You see, there's the wisdom, the truth of you that knows the truth. But then there's these pieces of you that go, this is a bunch of bullshit. How can you even think that? And so if you want, we can talk and I'll help you to start to connect with those parts so they don't have to stay outside of your wisdom.
Thank you.
Okay.
Connection email
I
already
totally
sent.
agree. I totally agree with what Serena just said. For me, I was in international sales for 9.5 years, and you're talking about facades. You never really connected with anybody. It was all a bubble that put up an impermeable, barrier to really know who you're talking to do sales. It's like the longer you're faced with that, it's almost the longer you have to put that behind you. It takes a while to realize that that's all useless minutia. Connect with your inner self. And somewhere each of us has had that little spark to get us started, and follow that spark. Don't deny it. It will take you to new truths and a deeper understanding of who you are and what our purpose is here on this planet. I mean, that's my take.
So we have the passion and we have it in several forms. And thank you all for communicating this with us. It's breath, it's curiosity, it's craft, it's people, it's heart, it's calling. And this is what makes up the passion. Now, inevitably, we get to a point with this, and it's usually early on, but I mean, several down the line that I've experienced. So I just want to talk to y'all about resistance. I've heard it described as though compared to taboo. So taboos are like barriers to knowledge. I had a guest on named Jenny Rivers, and what she said about the forest being that the thickets and the nettles and the fleas and the ticks and stuff are on the outside of the forest. It's in the middle where the magic is, but you must get through what we would then metaphorically refer to as resistance in our own lives. You got to get through that because it's a barrier. It's supposed to be tough. It's not supposed to be, it's for everyone, but not everyone will choose to do it. So this resistance that pops up, and I know anyone in a creative field has absolutely experienced this, and it absolutely shows you every reason in the world to turn around. So I would like to talk about resistance as a concept, and then also give some useful advice of how you guys overcame resistance to keep moving forward. I think that's a very important part of this story. So Louisa, you built this amazing thing. This must have been just easy. You just threw all the parts together and it was just a breeze all the way through it, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was very aware from the beginning that I was set up to do this. I come from a manufacturing family. I have like people around me who believe in me. I was given a good base, good family base start. Like I would have had to have had that to like go to this level. I couldn't even imagine doing it if I had more than what I had. And I would say like there was definitely dark periods. Like one where I was living in my car, just got out of a terrible relationship and was like, feeling suicidal and just unsure of what to do. And I did what most people do. I just went home to my family, and my mom said, you should go back to whatever you were doing the last time you felt joy, the last time you felt curiosity, the last time you felt hope and curiosity. And I had quit my degree in physics. I already had a bachelor of arts, but I had quit my degree in physics to go to Seattle and party and all this stuff, and it just kind of fell apart. And so I went back to physics. And it was in 2016, actually, you guys are all talking about 2016. I was working on my degree in physics, and I met, after just giving up everything, all my expectations for life, just unsure of any direction at all. And I met my husband, Rowan, in the science department. And I just realized after I met him why none of my relationships had ever worked out before, because I am a true nerd scientist and I just needed a scientist. I just needed another person who had the kind of brain that I do. And it was not going to be found in like a party scene. And it was like, get out of that, put myself somewhere where there's like-minded people around me. And that's kind of been my tactic. If I'm feeling down, if I'm feeling dark, it's my soul's way of saying, hey, you're not where you're supposed to be. You're not in the right place. Something's not lined up. And so when that happens, my tactic is to find people who are on fire and then align with those people, through connection, through collaboration, or just through observation to get inspired. But I always search for the guides. I search for the mentors and the people that have been doing it longer, and try to figure out, what I can learn and how I can increase my skills through those connections. And I've gone through that cycle like probably 10 different times. Every time I'm going to grow or scale my business or change some aspect of my career, it's always required internal changes that realigned me with the right tribe of people and the right connections. And it usually requires me doing something that is terrifying.
Yeah.
To get to there. Yeah. And it's something that is like completely not my wheelhouse and makes me feel panic. And I got to do it anyway, because I know that if I don't, that's not the right path. I just have to listen to my heart no matter what. But the heart sometimes tells you to do difficult things that are hard but feel good to be done, because it's the right thing. And yeah. So, and I'm in it again now, like going through this massive transformation of like changing from a creator to a reporter, of like, okay, now I've spent 20 years working on this project. Now I'm going to report and share what I've found, what I've learned. And in the process, I now need to learn more. So, yeah, that's been my personal cycle approach to the darkness. And yeah, just to be completely honest, I also have struggled with addiction a lot in my life, and that's a theme that comes up a lot every time my life gets into that realm. So I got like an extra boss to battle every time. So but I just feel so dedicated to this project, and my husband is also completely dedicated to it. So I feel like this is what I'm going to do till I die. And I have that figured out now. So I'm like, I can rest in that knowing. But I still don't know anything about how this is going to go. And it's totally been weird so far. Yeah. But like reaching out, meeting you, Brandon, and everyone that you've introduced me to, that was all me getting on TikTok. And I was so afraid to get on TikTok because of what everyone says about it, and tells you to be afraid and stuff. And my sisters were saying, oh, somebody's going to steal your idea. You shouldn't put it on there. You shouldn't tell anyone about it, actually. Just hide it. So I was like in that mentality for a while. But I just overcame that. I had this little voice inside me that was like, don't be afraid. It's time to show what you did. Just do it. And so I did it. And that little voice was right. I started meeting the contacts that I meant to meet. And since then, it's been feeling like I'm in a movie. And there's definitely, slow periods and times when you don't know what the heck is going on. But when those times happen, I've just been trying to be like, okay, let's play a game or like go do something else. Just stop thinking about it, give it a rest, So that's what I've been trying to give it space.
Well, we're glad you did.
Yay.
It's incredible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Man, just remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. So resistance, what's that look like to you, Mark?
Well, the first thing that comes up is that after my first two books, which were about just spirituality in general, and this was in 2020, and I started to recognize the darker side and the deception that I felt like many people were not seeing through. I felt like I needed to talk about that to make my books more well-rounded. I felt like I hadn't done enough on those topics, but there was resistance there because I knew that I would probably cannibalize my initial audience, that many of those people probably wouldn't like what I was talking about. And then also just the potential dangers of talking about topics that are dangerous to talk about. So it's something I've had to deal with, and I'm sure all of us have had to deal with that to some degree here, and probably many members of the audience. How much do we want to actually talk about? So maybe I can talk about just briefly the way I've dealt with that, and I'm still continuing to think about it. But number one, I give myself time with regard to these topics rather than rushing. I allow myself to just sit with it. And as I sit with it, I also refine my perspectives. But usually what happens is that in the end, I decide that trying to uncover the truth is more important than anything else. That's where I land. To uncover the truth and share it in a grounded way with evidence, and not to necessarily say something with 100% confidence if I can't, but to present it if it feels like it's important. And that seems to override the resistance. And I think this goes back to what Serena was talking about in terms of embodying who we are and why we're here. Because I think if the embodiment is fully there, then the resistance isn't there. The resistance I have is because of a lack of embodiment and still some old conditioning that I probably haven't worked through. So that the old conditioning comes up and it overrides the authenticity. But in the end, I think the authenticity seems to come through.
It definitely does. And this is why the running towards what scares you, that type of mindset is what you all share. And that's what's so beautiful about this. You can unleash that inner, I'm just this much more passionate about this thing. I'm just this much more curious than scared. I have this much more heart than fear. And it's all this, that tick more that is set in y'all. That's absolutely beautiful. Wally, what's resistance look like to you, brother?
Oh, my deep breath. Resistance is all of my friends still living in a world where they perceive their own truths. And those truths are no longer my truths. And so I constantly get bombarded with comments and attempts to quell where I am going. And one of the things I have learned, which is the truth for me, and I know you will relate to this, Brandon, because you use the word reality and expanding reality, but I'm a firm believer that we make our own realities. And I have learned slowly, albeit very slowly, that it's a mind game, at least with me. I can sit down and focus on what has been and put all that behind me and forget about it, put it in a file cabinet, shut the drawer, and focus going forward. Now that did not come overnight. That has taken a lot of practice, especially in the last 2 years. And I'm still, adept at it. I've realized, like Louisa has said, that for me, I kind of have a goal now, and that's to pull all of my friends and everybody who has fallen into this religion that the God of the Old Testament is what is what reality is, and especially from a Christian or a standpoint, and they're missing the real truths. So I think where I'm heading for the rest of my life is some way, somehow, to maybe write a third book and gently, lovingly nudge them, if I could get them to read it, at least close to the gate, where they see that the gate has hinges where they can step outside. And once they step outside, they will realize truth in spades that they have not realized before. And I guess the challenge for me is, how do I do that without offending anybody? Because that's the last thing I want to do.
You're going to know.
Ooh.
You're going to know because you're the gatekeeper of that transformation. And so that's your divine charge. So when you go to do it, you will know how to do it, because that's your gift. That's the gift that you're giving.
Well,
I want to chime in. I want to chime in here as well, Wally, because I've gone through something similar in terms of being worried about offending people. And I have offended people with some of my work. And ultimately, the decision I had to make was that it was ultimately worth it. That if people are offended by it, that's an internal process that they're going through. And if you have something that's very important to share, then it will reach the right people, and certain people will not resonate with it. And that's part of the process.
I was always taught in sales that if you were offended or you had your feelings hurt, that was a choice that you made. So the question is, why did you allow your feelings to be hurt? Or why did you want to be offended?
Yeah, suffering's a choice, as Buddha says, right?
Yep.
I'm reminded of a quote here. It's Da Vinci, that there are 3 classes of people: those who see when shown, and those who do not see. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like there's a built-in resistance here. It seems like that just with that observation, which I think we could all agree with just in our own observations, is that there seems to be, let's say that we can see, for instance, and we can also convey a message that we're very passionate about doing so through our stories, because we can see, and we're very passionate about being able to show those who can see as well once they're shown. And so we're very passionate about making sure that we show the hell out of it, and that we're very attractive in that message so that it's shown in the right way. But again, that third component is, it seems to be, it's last there, those who don't see, but it seems like there's a high percentage of those around. Now, I don't know if that's just the fog of it all, and this is just assumption at that point. But again, this idea that it's kind of built in, Mark, to what you're saying, Wally, to what you're saying, it's, you just do you, that's it. You do you, boo-boo, and then everything else falls in line. That's the best way to go. And you do set that parameter. Louisa, I'm glad you said that. John?
I just wanted to add something about it. It came to me when you were, all of this was being discussed. Those 3 people, while it is true that you could separate yourself, you are also all 3 of those people at the same time. And what that is that it's not a permanent state. There's an evolution in each one of them. And the real truth about all of it is you can't see what you don't feel is true. And the feeling, so for just popping into 3D, COVID, how can you make everybody see what's true when their own lived experience in the way that they understand it and are experiencing it makes it real because they believe it? And their own understandings that preceded that. So what we're looking at is when we're dealing with like history or insertion of ideas, we're treating it as though it exists in a vacuum. And the reason why we do that is because we're trained on a two-dimensional thought process of either or, Coke or Pepsi, red or blue. And we don't imagine other potentials that could exist outside of those two. So we end up being able to be triangulated by the power structure and authority put against each other because we're taking the side of the one that we can see as opposite of ours, that's false according to what we see from our own point of view, but we don't realize the one that's in ourselves. And that doesn't mean we're wrong entirely, but it's not this or that, or even a little of this or a little of that. It could be neither. And there could be a higher answer to that question, right? The thing that I've learned that was hardest for me is getting past duality.
Yeah.
And the way that you can't teach something through thought form construct, what I've come to realize, and it's very frightening, and Serena, you are starting to encounter it, is this friction out there when you go and talk with people. Okay, on a I don't want to say a higher level, but on a macro level, the world has been dominated by malignant narcissists for thousands of years. And we're coming out of a cycle for which all of that narcissistic behavior has been programmed from childhood, institutionalized by culture,
Yes.
has been shaped through psychological, ritualized events of wars, plagues, Great Depressions, and all insertions of social and cultural norms where beauty, fashion, and makeup are all pornified. And then we have Me Too and hold up Cardi B with WAP as empowerment for women at the same time. That's duality. That's paradox. That's our own internal contradictions. So the resistance that we experience is a tool in the toolbox of our learning where we watch something pass through us and watch where it is that we resist for or against it, because it's running up against that program inside and it's creating friction somewhere within us that appears to be outside of us.
Yes.
It's a mirror.
Yes.
But the problem is we can't see who we are, just as a narcissist can't see who they are, just as a psychopath can't see who they are. They know they're effed up, but they're not that guy over there or that person over there. At least I don't kill kids. At least I don't. You see what I mean? It's a reductionist position that we're all, everybody is in this position of not me, not me, not me, not you, not you, not me. It's not, I have no accountability and responsibility for any of that crap over there, even though we co-create it with them. Even when we've been so disconnected from heart. So the resistance part of this, at least to me, is that when I find it within myself, so not talking, Wallace, directly to your issue, but when you discover that they can't see what you understand, they can't, because they're trying to find it in the reference of their mind, in the thought form structure that is based upon oh God, it's so deep, but it's our first authority, which is mom and dad, which is God, to the child. And we've been taken out of that state of play because that's childish behavior, but that's where imagination, creation, intuition, and all of that begin. And we've reduced it down to literal thought forms in the left hemisphere of the brain. We've overstimulated the left hemisphere of our brain, which is analysis, data, facts, math, ideas. There is no love in that equation. And because the left hemisphere has now become overstimulated, it has become tyrannical in our society, where everything is absolutes. You're a Trump supporter, no more discussion. You are this, no more discussion. You are woke, no more discussion. You are transgender, no more discussion. I already got it figured out. I see what I see. I'm calling a spade, and it's a done deal. And the truth is that the violence that we're going to witness on certain aspects of our culture is going to make people very cynical. The bet of these monsters in power is all based on our narcissistic behaviors being weaponized to make ourselves feel as though there is not a human solution in this world. It needs more laws. It needs AI. It needs, because AI, what it does is a psychopath's perfect weapon. It's a non-feeling entity that hands you an answer. Basically, we're in a world of whatever you want it to be now. You're going to write your own story, and it's going to be whatever you want it to be. That's where we're headed. Gender wars and all this other crap ain't going to matter. We're moving into a multi-generational war where we have psychological cults of pathology, like in the corporate state. It's mostly psychopathic. It's non-feeling. It's a pecking order of hierarchy. Right now in the corporate structures, the people that I'm talking with, everybody is fighting their mother and father inside themselves. Everyone. Every person is for themselves. Everyone is taking sides as the corporations come in and they demand, they're basically what they are, they can't change. They're demanding the same results of 20 years ago today in a world where the debt has just swelled. The banks were zombie banks in 2007, 2008, and we propped them up with fake money and fake interest rates. And here we are. There's no more growth in the old system. It's only contraction. And the Great Reset, as far as I've seen it, is everybody's going back to one. Everybody's going back to what they know, because that's all they can control. They don't have time to deal with this and that and worry about what Biden's doing or what. Yeah, I mean, this is lower level stuff. This is not what the show is about. But what I realize is this jive and this news and this deluge of information is all to overstimulate. And look at where we are at with mental health in children. Exploding. I'm going to give a speech to the International Association of Psychohistorians and call for I'm going to be very kind, but I'm going to call for a revolution in their industry and say psychohistorians should not be dictating what the past is. Psychohistorians should be working with quantum physicists, biological. In every science, psychohistorians can be predictors of future to a mathematical precision when they map all traumas to human behaviors experienced in childhood. And then we deal with the phenomena that happens outside of that. But we map 80 to 90% of it, and we're pretty solid going, if you had this kind of mother and this kind of father in this kind of environment, if you had a narcissistic father and a cold mother who did not love you and you're a boy, you are likely to be a misogynist, a rapist, a serial killer. Not absolutely, but you're going to have tendencies towards violence because your autonomy as a child was under assault every single day, and there was no love in that equation. This is what's missing from the world. There's no wisdom anymore. There's no heart, which is lived experience, self-reflection, constant learning of oneself in the areas of which you can dedicate your time every day that benefit you, make you happier. Creation. And we're looking for a mechanical answer to solve all this problem, to make it stop. And we're acting like codependent children of alcoholic parents in the backseat of a car as mommy and daddy are blazing down the road at 115 miles an hour. And we're yelling at them, please, please, please stop. Open the car door and jump out because it's going to wreck.
John, can I speak to what you're saying?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm just going off, but go ahead.
At first I felt, wow, what brilliance. But I also feel the spiral into the darkness. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Yeah.
This is not a global choice of everybody has to jump on the bandwagon. This planet is called the Great Experiment. Okay? Mm-hmm. I know I've been told these things. So this planet is like a playground. You come, you play on the slide, the jungle gym. You come and you play in the sandbox. You get to choose what you're going to do.
Right.
We are energetic beings in physical body. What we think, we create. Most people are unconscious. So they create from unconsciousness and fear. It's an individual choice. For me, with resistance every day, every moment, I notice, am I in resistance with something? If my mind starts to get focused on a thought, oh my God, or my body tenses, I'm in resistance. My job is to stay in a place of allowing and surrender as the human part of this wisdom. Now, not everybody is changing and awakening, but there is such a mass movement because look at all of us. There is a mass movement of human beings awakening like never before. Do you know of Heaven's Cross?
No.
Okay, so on March 23rd of this year, the veil was removed. Now, I was a part of this veil, cracking it in 2015. So, your choice is to step out of mainstream if you want, because that's what I've had to do. So yesterday when I spoke to these people and I was driving home and I was in resistance because my mind said, wow, there was hardly any response to what I had shared. There was only 5 people that came up and talked to me. Now that's resistance for me. So I sat with the truth of it and sensed intuitively, and I got, you scared the crap out of them.
Yeah.
You see, it's your journey. You are phenomenally brilliant. You just knocked my socks off, okay? But sometimes that brilliance from intellectual brilliance can get you off track. So
Yes.
I'm inviting you to sort of turn down all the media because, yes, if you pay attention to it, you will be overwhelmed by the darkness. I was raised by a psychopathic serial killer who killed hundreds and hundreds of people. I witnessed through the government people casually, them killing children, boom, boom, electrocuting, stabbing them, whatever. Now, I had to make a choice. Do I want to stay with that horror? Or do I want to see the truth? You see, I wanted to be born into the blackest black on our planet so that I could awaken to the truth of what our planet's about. You see, our planet is duality. It is good or bad, right or wrong, love or fear. But we, as the ultimate being, gets to choose. Do I want to live in the fear? Do I want to live with the darkness? You see, today I have made friends with the darkness, the shadows of me. I am no longer afraid of it. People say, aren't you afraid of talking about this stuff? Aren't you afraid the government's going to come get you? No. Do you know why? I'm invisible to them. Because this light energy that I am is a vibration that they're not interested in me. They probably think I'm insane and whatever. And they tracked me for many years. And Wallace, I want to ask you one question I want you to be with is why is it so important that they realize this other realm that you have discovered? Why is that so important to you? It's something you need to sit with so that you can discover. You know, I have 3 sons. One is very angry and says the world sucks. My eldest son is caught in the throes of darkness, is very angry with me. And my middle son is choosing to open the door, experience this breath, step out of the box of fear and training that he experienced. And he's experiencing this other realm. And I don't get to choose for any of them. But I had to look at what was the push behind it when I wanted to get them to hear me. And now I can be in the presence of my children in their states of mind, and I don't need them to be different. And it's because I sat with the resistance, the judgment within myself. And I don't want to preach, but John, you're just phenomenal. Holy smokes.
It's all heart, it's all passion. And this is the thing about this, right? Because this place is heavy and there are so many different ways to look at this and so many places and so many And sort of the way that I've been looking at it lately is sort of what Mark was talking about earlier, is about, I look at this place as we're all just mapping consciousness in the way that we feel, what we see, what we interact with. And so it's the way that we do that is what we're sharing with each other here. And so, yes, no right or wrong. We all have ideals about the best way to go about what we're passionate about. And this is the thing. And this is a question actually I'd just love to dive into now. It's alchemizing the heaviness to create the beauty outside of it, because where John, where you are is, it's heavy. It's the heaviest part of this awakening experience. And it's something that I went through with this, what we call the Paul Revere, where I just had to tell everybody, I had to wake everybody up, but I was so passionate. I'm like, dude, y'all see what's going on? And then I also share Serena's point of view. I've been graced with all of these different perspectives where I can see it's just a bigger part of the whole, and that perhaps it's just all us, and it's all this huge thing that we perpetuate by putting energy into the system. And so I see that. So that's the question, guys, is how, at what part of this can you stay grounded, but still see the darkness and face it with love and compassion, and alchemize the heaviness into the love and compassion that will actually be of use? Because that's what we all want here, right? We want to be useful with the passion that we have, and we don't want it to go to waste on miscommunication. You know what I mean? So how do we do that? How do we alchemize it into something warm that folks can receive the way that we meant to send it?
Do you mind if I?
Please.
So I use a lot of, well, Brandon, you've seen on my Instagram, I use a lot of film clips as metaphors.
Love those. Yes.
And one of the ones that hit me recently again was the clip from Amistad, when Anthony Hopkins is sitting down with the man on trial as a slave, and he's playing the role of one of the former presidents, James Madison, and he is going to walk him through this trial and is telling you, I want you to know that we won't be alone. And the guy says, he says through the translator, I know that I will not be alone. I will call upon my ancestors, and they will be there with me. They must come, for I am the very reason that they are the very reason that I exist right now. And that, where I've plugged my own story into that understanding, is the transmutation of my childhood and going back to my father at the end of his life 3 years ago, where I was with him. This is a man who sexually abused me when he was drinking, and caused enormous harm and damage. I relived my near-death experiences in the last couple of years that showed me what that was all about. And I had unconditional love for him at the end because I saw his inner child. I realized this wasn't his plan A when he was a boy. And I realized that that was the place that I could be at peace with, understanding where my suffering and his suffering was no different. In that regard, there was no free will choice there. He denied me mine, but his was denied before, and so on and so forth back. Didn't make it right, but that I could put it right for him and me without saying a word. Now I could feel it in my heart and know that I did everything for that man, not because I needed to be loved by him, but because I was always loving him as a child. I was the one who could forgive him because I was the child. And there was something about that in that whole experience when he died and opened his eyes and looked right at me with clear baby blue eyes into my eyes, the depth of my eyes. When the last moment hits and the DMT hits and they're going into that other world, there's like a psychedelic moment where the eyes and everything look as though they're on shrooms. And he had that with me. It was an exchange that lasted 3 to 4 minutes. And I go back to that because I realized years ago that I made a commitment that I said, this shit ends with me. that I was going to be not some badass code breaker, but I just said, even if I can't heal this entirely, I will withhold the worst of myself and use that as wisdom to give people what I have learned from it. I believe that we're here not to wake everybody up, but to share what is true in us, and where that goes out into the world, into the mind and the spaces that it opens in other people. It's like your meaning, my meaning is different from your meaning. How I arrived there is different how you arrived there. That's our story. But we're all traveling really in the same time and space in the biggest sense of the energy, the cosmic wave, right? And we're all riding that wave a different way. And we're all saying, hey, look at what I've done with this over here, what I've created over here as a result of going through that pain. That was my book of wisdom. I haven't read but maybe 10. I mean, I'm not afraid to say this anymore. I used to be like, people would say, don't say that. I have read less than 10 books in my life, truly. And I had, I was in the hospital when I was 7, 8 years old, wanted to kill myself. I had an undiagnosed bipolar disorder, but it was highly functional. And I had a high level of intelligence. Everybody saw it when I was a child. Nobody knew what to do with me. But I realized that when I went back and looked at when I made straight A's versus D's, F's, and C's, all of that, it was the care according to the person who I was with, the teacher, the instructor who cared, who saw the potential in that child and didn't take its crap out on them. The ones that took their crap out on me, I failed. I did all the passive aggressive. I didn't do my homework, nothing. I'm just looking at it as simple ways that care, love, real true love that is self-evident is given in the form of acts of care that can be received and experienced by that person. There is no command of word or belief or coercion or convincing that needs to be done. It is self-evident. Anyway,
Well, you nailed it with this, because that's one of my favorite quotes ever. It happened in my family until it happened to me. And this seems to be a theme with folks like us. And I've been seeing this pop up a lot lately. I actually had an Akashic record reading with Rachel Horton White. And this was one of the things. There was a figure that came in. I'm going to say it was from my real dad's side, his dad, who I've got a handful of memories from my real dad. He bailed when I was 2, right? Sperm donor guy. But there's alcoholism in that entire family. And then, being a musician, it was natural. You're just doing it, right? So there was like a 20-year period where I just drank every single day. And then about 2 years ago, I just stopped. I just stopped drinking. And then I had this Akashic record reading. And that was one of the things that was brought up, is sort of this alcoholism, and that it stopped with me, and that they were super pumped about it. And I just got this feeling either way that it just didn't serve us moving forward. And I knew it in my family, right? German and Irish mix. So we just can drink and love it. So I just knew that needed to stop with me. But this is a great observation that you put, John, because this is one of the things that's heavy within this place. Is it's not only the response, the waking up and the finding your higher selves, and then finding out this place is not what they're telling you. And so it's like, who can you trust? And then now you're like, hang on. So I got family shit that I need from all the way back in ancestry. Okay, now I'm going to be naturally drawn to that, and they need to get over it. So I'm going to be drawn to it as a coping mechanism because of the shit I'm put through, and then need to get over it. It's all the way that it works. But again, it's this beautiful autonomy. It's this beautiful sovereignty that's achieved in these moments, because then it's just like, I'm not this story. I'm not this place. Yes, I'm not that energy. Right. I'm the other. But again, like what you said, it's the juxtaposition. It's the experience, the depth of, so that you can rise. It's that recoil as far as you can back so that you can launch as far as you can forward. It's this just exceptional quality in the, I'm not even going to say ability to weather, but it's just resilience. It's resilience and heart. Yes. And it's attractive as hell. I mean, it's such a lighthouse, and I'm just so grateful to know each and every damn one of y'all.
Well, you brought us together. Incredible. You created this space, so that is a reflection of you too.
Yeah, you guys are all so brilliant. It's amazing. I listen to you talk, and I'm like, wow, you guys are so intellectual. It's amazing to me.
I'm a magnet for incredible people. That's my superpower. And my selfishness, I want to bring them all together and have them all introduce each other. So, okay. So I absolutely wanted to get to, I had another question here. Okay. You touched on it earlier, Louisa, and I just kind of wanted to come back to this family, support or resistance or both.
Just in general, or
Yeah, because you had mentioned that your mom, and so that was an important part. Is that whenever things were the way that they were, and you had your tower moment, as they call it in tarot, new episode out today, check it out. Then you had your mother that you were able to go to. Now, she was supportive. She, of course, brought you in. Was there any sort of told you so's in any of that, or was it just pretty open armed? I love though that go back to whatever joy you had.
She just always, when I would ask her for advice or help, it would be so frustrating because she would just tell me that to ask myself, basically. She's like, you gotta ask God, you gotta ask yourself. She's like, you guys are the future, you're teaching me, I don't know anything. And this is, by the way, one of the holdovers from a very pious Christian ancestry of, my grandma stopped the Christian belief system in our family, which was incredibly deep. And she became Gnostic Christian. And then my mother was able to and we needed to escape because in my family, there was child abuse from the Christian punishment doctrines and just all kinds of, shame. And so just stopping the religion was the first step. And my mom did that. Or my grandma went Gnostic, and then my mom just completely threw it out and she became a Buddhist. And so my charge, I feel like, is to remove the layers of shame that those religions caused in my family and the unnecessary humbleness that has stopped my very talented mother and family from expressing their true creativity and talent because they just feel like they're not worthy. And so that's been my biggest thing is my worthiness and trying to find that. And, and I had a dad that was constantly triggering that sense of worthiness and constantly making me feel like nothing. And that was on purpose, I think, from the universe, because if I had been totally praised by both parents and showered with attention and had such a great time, I would have just been a totally spoiled brat and had no sense of wanting to help other people. I think that's part of what made me who I am was being in pain and being, underestimated, which has always been, just gets under my skin. I've been underestimated my whole life by family and by friends and by all kinds of people. And I'm just now coming into my power, and that's becoming glaringly obvious, who's been supportive and who hasn't. And in my family, there was both. There was very supportive people and there was very dismissive people. And I think that we all have that. All of our families, not every single person is going to be on your team. And I think all that resistance that comes from people closest to you is part of what shapes you and makes you make choices. And that's part of your destiny, because that karma, those people in your life that are close to you, that's your karma. They're there on purpose to shape you and your journey. And those dots that you can't avoid connecting, it's your destiny points. So every single person, from my siblings to my mom and dad, they all their darkness and shadow and all of their gifts are part of my story, and vice versa. So, yeah.
Outstanding.
So you're supported in areas, and then you're also kicked off the team in areas. And
which is supporting.
It's up to you to be who's right about me, and who do I believe and who do I trust? And it's got to be, the answer to that every time has to be me. And that, I'll grow from there. That's where I start.
Perfect. Mark, what did you experience in the form of resistance, support, both with family?
Well, first of all, I apologize for cutting out there. My Wi-Fi went off, so I missed a little bit of what everyone was saying. But so this is about resistance with regard to people around us, and expressing our authenticity and maybe getting pushback.
Yeah. And then some maybe surprising support, or some support in the same way.
Yeah. I would say generally I've had a lot of support, which has been great. Support in that people say, go for it, Mark, but not support in that they necessarily understand me or understand what I'm doing. And that's a challenge because there's a difficulty in relating fully. We talked about this earlier, just talking about inane topics is not of interest to me. I want to be having conversations like this all the time.
Yeah.
And that's difficult. But there also has been some resistance. I remember when I wrote the draft of my first book, this was in 2017, and I sent it to a few friends. I had one friend in particular, very smart, very good person, who basically wanted to have an intervention with me and say, do not publish this, Mark. I'm looking out for you. Please don't do this. And that was just about the science of consciousness, psychic phenomena, and survival of bodily death, things like that. And then I've written more controversial topics, sociocultural, a lot of Great Reset type issues, political issues, and have gotten some similar reactions. Mark, do you really want to do this? I will not support this. I've gotten that kind of reaction. I know you mean well, but I don't support what you're doing.
How did that feel? Did it feel empowering or like a stomach punch or both?
Frustrating. Because in all the cases, if the people understood where I was coming from and understood the evidence that I was presenting, then they would agree with me. That was my mindset. And what I was feeling is that they were missing something. Something was not clicking, like their blinders. Mm-hmm. And people seem to have blinders, myself included, in different areas.
I have, just to interrupt, I've used that word many times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Blinders. People they have blinders, and people, at least where I live, 20 minutes from Jerry Falwell's school, people want to be led.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
they
desperately.
Want to be led.
Yes. They want to be sheep. They want to fit in.
Exactly.
I think that it's both. I think that there's a lot that want to be true and authentic to themselves, but they've been just so beaten down by all the things we're talking about here. They're the ones in their ancestry that their kids will be like, it stops with me, but it could stop with them. And it's about being just these lighthouses. I think that's what I feel is just making the message.
There's always going to be unconscious things, and it can't all stop with us. We slowly adapt and we slowly accept conformity, and none of us is exempt from that. We are all creating this system. It's nobody's individual fault or responsibility. It's like that, but we do have a responsibility to examine the ways in which we have conformed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because as much as I like to say, oh, I'm off grid, I'm one step out of the system, la la. Yeah, I am on 50 different counts, but then there's tons of ways I still am in it. There's tons of ways I still contribute to the nonsense, the chaos, and probably the violence, unknowingly, unconsciously. So yeah, it can't all stop with you. We're not perfect, but I think just knowing what your thing is, and that's enough. You got to know what you're headed for, what your intentions are, and help other people realize their intentions, because a lot of people don't have intentions, and the lack of intentions, the lack of consciousness is what we want. We're calling it being woke. It's wake up. But yeah, self-awareness is the first doorway to
100%.
getting
100%. I love it. John?
No, I was just going to say something in response to Mark and Serena and Wallace and all of what we're talking about. I thought about this, and Mark, I would really like to read your books. I have more of a mind today that I can focus. There is something that is unique about this time that is unlike other. It is but it is different than other times as far as the mass level of, let's say, everything, everywhere, all at once at the same time.
Yes.
Timelines are contracting in that they're converging. And I don't want to get too cosmic about this. What I mean is psychological realities, constructs of reality. We label them in classification, identification, purple hair, trans. You see what I mean? I'm just the way it's defined by the experts in the world. You can't ignore that. If you tune into the program, then you can't help. It's like if you see a commercial for a car and you get in your car, you're going to see that car now because they've made you consciously aware of it and they've defined it for you. In this time, with all the events, let's just say it, COVID, and I'm not saying it's all encompassing, but the idea of the fear of suffering and dying is the core issue of that program. The fear shifted behaviors, awoken the inner defensive behaviors of each and every person to protect themselves in a survival state to the point where their family members and friends who they had no problem with the previous day before, all of a sudden were a threat of potentially causing them illness, suffering, and death. This is a psychological operation on a mass scale that most people can't conceive of. And what this has done, as you've seen, fear and threats and threats. Weather, there's not heavy rain anymore, there's harsh rain. It's the choice of words, it's neurolinguistic programming, it's shifting behaviors. Why I'm saying this is because the fear of suffering and dying is so ingrained in each and every human being. When the child is ignored, for which it disassociates, it has no memory of this. This is the body now on a cellular level. It retains that fear at a cellular level, not in thought, but in emotion. And when they can come, the controllers can come and define all of your threats and fears for you through the insertion of thought and concepts. They plug directly into our trauma and create a feeling in the heart that makes it real everywhere we see it. So in this time, what has happened is this anchoring and pressing down and crushing as many people as possible into a two-dimensional mindset of right or left, Coke or Pepsi, as I was saying earlier. But it is fear, scarcity, and ignorance that the narcissist destroys another person. So those three elements, fear, scarcity, and ignorance, give way to authority. Authority comes in and says, I need a mommy and daddy to tell me what's true and what's false here. I need a mommy and daddy to tell me what's real and what's not real. I need a mommy and daddy to tell me who's fake and who's telling the truth, who's a conspiracy theorist, who's a threat to me. That's what this whole time has been about in terms of weaponizing narcissistic behaviors on the whole that have caused people to pull apart. So Mark, to your point about this, you want to give them that thing that's missing. What I realized is that we're going through this ritual of information, and it's important. It's like, okay, what is the meaning? What is the value? What is the real value to you? I had to ask myself this. It's like I could go down endless rabbit holes. And like you said, Serena, you know the darkness, so you don't need to go down any rabbit holes because you're like, I don't need to read it in a book or in an article or see a video. I have the entire book. I am the book.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So that knowledge is you go, okay, that's how dark it can get. Now there's everything else. There's everything other than that. And Mark, what I'm not speaking just directly to you, I'm telling myself this as well, which is to be the thing that defies beliefs and falsehoods. Because you're a Roger Bannister, you're running the 4-minute mile for the very first time in recorded history, and all of a sudden everybody believes that they can do it, and they start doing it every week after that.
Can I speak to what you're saying, John?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So, no, don't apologize. But when you were talking about the narcissistic person and obeying and becoming a robot, okay? Mm-hmm. I was that person. I literally had no identity. Mm-hmm. I was controlled by hand signals, touch, word commands. And it was only when this woman started to say, "What do you feel?" You see, this is so intelligent that it can get us in a loop of almost like insanity. But if you're willing to step out of this and begin to feel, authentically connect to the feeling, because I've got to tell you, I wasn't a living human being. They could call me on the phone and say a word command, and I would drive, and I would show up and do what they wanted. So like you said, I lived it. And, I've had to come to a connection of what is right for me, not for anybody else. What is my inner guidance not just telling me, how does it feel for me, And that's been the life-saving grace for me. One of my sons, he was so wise one day. He said, "Mom, your book's not going to be a bestseller." And I said, "And why is that, son?" And he says, "Because a lot of people aren't going to even want to read it. It's too scary." And I had to sit with that statement. I was like, yeah, that's true. Because people don't want to sit with truth. They like the idea of judgment and good and bad and right and wrong. I was raised on Father Knows Best and Donna Reed and all of those. And so those parts of me, those child parts of me, wanted so desperately to believe, if I just do this, this will happen and I'll be happy. And I had to learn, no, it doesn't work that way. And so today, I don't need anybody at that business luncheon to change or hear me or be different, because we're all on this individual journey. I look at all 6 of us, and we're all so profoundly unique, and we all bring this flavor of brilliance to not just this conversation, but to the planet. And just imagine how many of us are on the path of awakening at different periods, different levels, but our brilliance is contributing. So I focus on the brilliance and the light of this world. There's a lot of darkness, John. And if you focus on it, you can go into it, and it's not worth it, because yes, there's cruelty, narcissism, there's psychopathic behavior, there's corporations and blah, blah, blah. And I mean, I could go, because I know it. I've lived it, So
John might be somebody, though, that is, it might be part of his destiny to take out some darkness. Maybe there's a reason he's focused on it in general.
Right. But I'm just saying, I know that where you focus, it makes it bigger. It expands it.
Yeah.
And I've been in the circle of almost insanity for me, because I've been overwhelmed with the terror that this world has to offer. I've lived it. So
yeah.
Go ahead. How I compare this is the front lines. Like, you're on the front lines and you're there with your big heart and you're grabbing people and you're taking fire as you're doing it. So it's a very fear-based place where you find yourself. But man, that you pulling people through that trench, pulling people through that wall so that Serena can comfort them with that new perspective when they can get to that point, that part of everyone's evolution. This is why this is so beautiful. Everyone's got their perspectives, their jobs to do here, their roles, but you're all embracing it with such confidence and power. And that's what's so beautiful. It's at every phase. And that's why, again, this is not an army. This is a tribe. We were all sent here by each other to connect at this time and say, hey, here's where we found mapping consciousness. How can we all come together and what do we see? And that's what this is about. And it's so beautiful to see the different phases that we can all connect with for everyone, but have these very high perspective conversations where we can take it back to our, let's say, disciplines of area of interest, of service, and really focus on it from all perspectives, which is beautiful, because now we can all come together and be here and say, hey, we're all here for each other. And I love what you're doing. And this is just the coolest tribe ever. I'm absolutely grateful. So we're probably, because I can do this forever, I'd like to end this with just being passionate, being inspiring, going through the stories. We've heard how the darkness is here. Let's hear the inspiration that you have for folks having gone through that darkness. So it would be something to where you just basically, how did you conquer that? And let's give you some, we've heard how you conquer, rather. Let's give some faith-based inspiration for the folks that are out there listening and watching, saying, hey, you know, we need to be inspired for the next round. So let's inspire some folks. Serena?
You know, I mentor people, and I'm working with a woman who has my history. And she came to me less than a year ago with only the awareness that she had been molested and raped by her father. And so my inspiration is that we all can be here to walk side by side with others that are on the journey and discovering their truths from a place of non-judgment and compassion. That's what has set me free, you know? Because we, like you said, we're a tribe. We are coming together. This is the miracle. I mean, I know people, I work with people all over the world, in Australia and Finland and, you know, the United States and Portugal and Hungary. And we're all the same. Yeah, we were raised in different cultures, but there is this passion and hunger to find the more within ourselves. And I know that we're all led for our perfect person that we all of a sudden connect to. And it's like, oh, look how this person is helping me to awaken.
It's beautiful. See what the darkness is worth? It's that. It's warmth, it's wisdom, it's love, it's caring. It's that was, do you think that it was worth what you experienced to be able to present that sort of information?
Brandon, I have to tell you, this one woman that I'm working, well, all of them, it's profound. I don't know any other word. I hold this space with this woman and she cries and she says, it's so hard. Oh my God. And I go, yes, it is, sweetie, but I'm here. I'm here. I'm living proof you can do it. I promise you can do it. And so I'm honored to walk with these people and love them from a place of, wow. I can't even put it into words.
That's beautiful. Wally, you're an inspiring fella. So let's hear some inspiring words to carry our passions through till the next time we get to talk to you, buddy.
My inspiring words are that you guys are my reality. I have no one around me to share what we are sharing this evening. And this has been just really great for me. The darkness that I came from has to do with religion. And, you know, I drank the Kool-Aid and I drank it heartily for 30 years, to where I was teaching Sunday school, preaching when the pastor wasn't there, and held about every position in the church, and you're brainwashed into that is, you know, reality. And all the other religions out there are just that, a religion, but Christianity is reality. Hogwash. That I guess I would go back to reading Eric von Daniken's book. I realized by studying, and I guess I have a pretty keen mind because I've always been able to remember what I've been taught. A lot of the people, and I hate to classify people, but we mentioned blinders. They don't remember what they've been taught, and they continue wanting to be taught. And I no longer wanted to be taught. I wanted to know truth for myself. And so I picked up the Bible and went from end to end, and it no longer had answers for me. So that was my darkness. I have found light outside the gates. and I have no desire to go back to the darkness, no desire at all. And what Serena says, part of that resonates with me, that it's not my job to bring other people, from darkness into light. Everybody's on their own spiritual path, and no two of us are on the same stage of that path. But I do want to share what I have found out, and doing these podcasts and being online with people like this. It's really, it builds me up. It fills a void in me somehow, some way. I just don't have that here, being in the Bible Belt. And there again, all my friends are back there, and I'm over here. And the same thing with family. They go to their Bible studies, they go to church, that's their reality, and they probably think I'm crazy. And that's okay. If they want to think that, they can. I know I'm not crazy. I know I have found real truth. I know I have found who I am. I know that what I know now is much deeper, much more real than what I thought I knew back then. And I'm just not going to allow that darkness to overtake me. I am going to continue on this path. I haven't seen the end yet. I'm learning as I go, and I'm absorbing as I go, and learning that we're all connected. Some way, somehow, every one of us is connected. Maybe it's a cosmic cohesion or a collusion, but we're all connected, and we're all brothers and sisters. We're all on our own paths, and we all have our own challenges. We all have these tests. Darkness might be considered a test that we face here on this planet. This planet is not, a 5-star resort. There's a reason we're here. And I think it's to grow and to learn to love each other and to overcome these challenges and these darknesses that we've all had. I've been diagnosed with bipolar too. I mean, I lost a house because I spent $300,000 I didn't have. Now think of that. It went undiagnosed for 20 years, but finally we got a handle on it in 2002. Of course, I cost a couple, in what's now Truist Bank, senior vice presidents their jobs because I knew how to get money. I played the system, but that's all in the past. I don't pay attention to that anymore. If people want to think I'm crazy, that's their choice. I know what's right for me. I know how to meditate now. I know who I am. And that's the biggest thing that's happened to me, is learning who I am. There's no facades anymore. You can live a life just being a resemblance of who you really are inside. But it's like, Serena, you reach a point some way, somehow, you need to know who you are, and you need to know what truth is. And I think we're all experiencing that in one way or another. Maybe it's a cosmic shift. But again, you guys are my friends. That's you all are who I relate to. There's nobody around here, and I'm talking about a 50-mile circumference of where I live, that I can have these kinds of conversations. So I'm a newbie at this, but let me tell you, I sense a realism in each of you, and I'm honored to be in your presence.
I feel the same.
Love you, Wally. Love you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Brandon, what was your question specifically about spirituality? Was about?
Inspiration.
Yeah. So just in something inspiring for the folks that they can carry with them to say, you know what? Yeah, it's all going to work out.
Well, in my experience, and this is really like what Wallace in some ways is talking about, is being a witness to the truth. But it's peace is your authority. Because the best advice I ever got before I went out to Hollywood was, John, just be yourself. And what I find, I try to find the humor in this in all ways, is that part of this game that we're in is the drama of God, which is God trying to figure out what it is in this existence. So if I were to look back at my whole life and all of the things that I remember, that's another thing, memory, what you remember, what you don't, how you remember. But when I go back into that story, I'm not trying to find a new meaning of the story. I'm trying to dig deeper below the words. And so what I theorize, or kind of for myself came up with the understanding, is that God is talking to us at all times through each other. It's all who answers the door. So the voice of the devil could be talking to you, and you think it's God, but you're answering the door to the devil. But if you know what the devil is saying, and you know what God says, and you know who you are, and that God is experiencing itself through you and every other person, then the things that people say, this was the thing I realized, is at a certain point, everything that I say about other in somebody else, I'm talking about myself. Because it's a story. It's my perception, it's my projection, it's my assumption, it's my understanding, it's my belief, but it's not the whole person. It's the part of me that I see in them. That's you, Wallace. That's you, Serena. That's you, Mark. That's you, Brandon. That's Louisa. We're seeing ourselves in each other. We're seeing the best of ourselves in each other, or the worst of ourselves in each other at all times. And we're judging it through form and appearance, judgment, attachment, resistance. It's a challenge every day, because there's still so much more that we're trying to learn, the depths of ourselves. That's the space. That's real space is the space within. The spaces within that we have yet to discover. There's outer space, and then there's inner space. And the two, even though it might be an inverse relationship, they are actually mirrors to each other. That the perception that we have on the outside is the one that we have on the inside too. It's calling to us. And if you look at art, this is the best way of the physical representation of this, is Leonardo, Michelangelo, Beethoven, Mozart, they're all dead. But their work plays on in the music of the mind, and the divine inspiration that came from those works is timeless because it's eternal. It's a manifestation of the divine that is so real and authentic in that expression that it's the original that everyone goes to copy. So what I believe that we're all, in the sense, trying to get closer to, is get closer to the understanding of what God is in human form, in not a God of self-importance, but a God that sees itself in every single one of us at the same time, from the beggar to the thief to the adulterer, to all the people that Christ spent his time with. He didn't go to authority to hang out and get the kicks and the perks. He spent the time with all of the children who, from this broken world, had been told they were nothing, and that their lives amounted to nothing. But then if I look at my own life, well, then I'm condemning myself because I was those people. In that time and space, I was them, where they are now. And they're coming back to me, and I'm being reminded and I'm remembering who I really am is who they are, and who they are is me. I don't know how else to say it, but that's kind of the way in the moments that I drop out of my mind, I realize I'm perceiving the beauty of God in everything, everywhere, all at the same time. And it's the miraculous mystery of it all that makes it divine. Because it's like you want to give the eternal waters and tell everybody, here's where the water and the land and the food is, right? But they can't see it. They're blind to see it. So on a metaphorical sense and the biblical sense too, the truth is spoken by the embodiment of the divine within you as the vessel. And show that to someone is not to command it out of them, because and again, I understand that these are documents, but the metaphors and the wisdom in them is that his own disciples did not recognize him because their minds had changed. They were in a different state of mind. They couldn't see who he was. And also, they could not see that when he washed their feet, he was doing so because he was saying, I am no different than you. I am no different than you. You're no different than me. It's only in your mind that it is an illusion of time, that I am somehow this different man from you. Teacher, master. What is that? It's the mastery of the self. The embodiment of the self is all who are toiling in the darkness and twisting through it. And the enlightenment part of it is not in knowledge, because the world is infinitely full of knowledge, but it's the world of the spirit, of the heart, that goes beyond all knowledge, that is universal, where the divine is perceiving that knowledge in its own perception, its own way, but it is a metaphor of all things. That is where I'm starting to come to realize that we are the embodiment of the child of the creator of heaven and earth, and our job here is to be a witness to that for our own mind and our own self. But then what does that really mean when we're talking about everybody else? It's not just for self. That's greed. That's selfish. That's like that's what they do today in the corporate world, where all the smart, intelligent people who are microdosing every day, by the way, to get a leg up on the creativity of their competition, can use the higher dimensions of their brain. They have sucked all of that out into the billionaire class. But they're not any smarter than you and I. They're really not. They're not any more intelligent. They're just as unconscious as anybody. And that when people begin to realize that we're the true worthy sons and daughters of the living creator and begin to live like that, peace will be the greatest authority we bring, because it'll be refuge from all the bullshit. And anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
It's beautiful, John. It's one of my favorite Bill Hicks quotes ever. It's what's going to happen to the arms industry when they realize that we're all one. And it's this idea of this unity consciousness. It's just this idea that we're all in this together. And that is absolutely beautiful. Now, to something you said as well, Beethoven's all right, I guess, but it's got nothing on Barbie Girl. I'm pretty sure that's going to live on for an infinity, for being part of the divine, because nothing is separate than the divine, right?
Still is. It's got a great sense of humor.
100%. It's got to. Louisa, something inspiring, darling.
Oh, that inspires me.
That inspires you, and that you want to let others to know how inspire themselves.
Oh man, I mean, I'm really weird in the things that inspire me. I don't know how to answer that. I mean, my favorite thing lately is Star Trek. That's always been my, when I'm having an anxiety attack, I put on Star Trek, and the the technology of the future, the vision of humanity when we've transcended war. It puts me in that state of mind and makes me have hope. And I literally shed a tear anytime they travel in a portal, because it's like my favorite thing ever. And it's only in that show that I can get that, that feeling that's truly where my soul dwells. So yeah, that's one of my inspiring, just inspiring pastimes, media, whatever.
Well, you and I are 7 months apart in age. And so we were raised with this idea of these movies and this particular time frame. And so you and I share so many things. We are so in common. It's insane. And so the way that you look at this is absolutely brilliant, because I see that your intuition is drawing you to, your contact inspired design on this thing, the fact that it rotates, the fact that there's a lot of scale up that you're doing. And even admittedly, this is one of the earlier versions. And so who knows where this can go? I'm pretty sure you're so drawn to this because you're going to be the ones zapping people through portals. And then I'm going to need one here because it's going to be like the teleportation device. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait. I'm holding on for this. I get it. Mark, inspire us, baby.
Sorry, I was on mute there. I was not in a good place when I started on this journey in 2016. I describe it in my book, An End Upside Down Living. It was a pretty vulnerable thing for me to talk about it, but it doesn't compare to what you went through, Serena, at all. But for me, it was a dark night of the soul. I mean, I felt completely lost. There was no sense of purpose. Things in my life were not going the way that I wanted, professionally, personally. And it felt like my life was over. In many ways, that was the sensation of like, there's nothing left for me here. What am I doing? I felt like a zombie. And I feel like if I could come out of that state into a place of wanting to make contributions to the world, then anyone can. And Serena, your story, everyone here has a story that has been inspirational, that people can come from very dark places and get to a positive place. But I do want to say that the journey is nonlinear. It's been nonlinear for me. And I think that's part of the awakening path. It's like there are oscillations, ups and downs that happen. So if, let's say, someone listening has maybe overcome a dark night of the soul, but then has found him or herself in a dark place, that's totally natural. And what I find is that the dark points now are less severe and shorter in duration, but they still come up. And I'm better able to identify what's happening as it's happening. Whereas previously I was just totally unaware. I didn't have the awareness to look at my life from a third party position almost that I do now. And like you said, Serena, I think a really important part of this is to feel the emotions as they come up, not to resist them. Like Dr. David Hawkins, who I consider to be one of my spiritual teachers, even though I never met him, he said, if you have a feeling, it's because you don't feel enough of it to some degree. Like the emotion can run out if you allow it to go, and then it runs out. So that's been a profound teaching for me. There's so many other things I want to respond to that people said, but I know we're running short on time. So I will leave it.
Actually, if there's some, I would like for you, if you've got some, if you're inspired task, I would like for you to too. Please.
Yeah, this is another part of my inspiration. I will say that I've been, where do I start? I'll talk about the inspiration I've had in my own journey of creating things, because I never plan on writing books or speaking publicly. Like if you knew me before, none of you knew me before I started on this. I was so much on the career track, not knowing where it was going to go. It was a treadmill, but I didn't plan on doing this sort of thing. But there's a sense of fulfillment that has come in my creative process. I feel it most when I'm writing books, when I'm researching, when I'm doing conversations like this or interviews. There's something different that overcomes me. And I mention that because I think we all have that to some degree. Serena, you called it authenticity, and it manifests differently for all of us probably. So I think part of the inspiration is finding what that is, that sense of passion. It's not really describable. I couldn't write it in words, but I know it now. I can identify it when I feel it. And knowing that exists, that's a very inspirational thing, because I do think we all have it, no matter what we've gone through. And then two other things I want to mention. These are wrinkles in just my view of reality and things that I'm struggling with. So it's kind of strange to end on this point because it probably raises more questions than answers. But I've experienced darkness in my own life, and I've researched a lot of darkness that's way darker than what I've experienced. And I think about spiritual principles that we're all part of something that seems to be unconditionally loving. I still struggle with the fact that so much darkness exists. To me, it feels masochistic that we could come into a body and have to experience this stuff, and yet it's all for learning. And that's still my operating hypothesis, is that it's all evolutionary. But from where I sit, it's very hard to reconcile that. And I always wonder, is the evolutionary narrative in some ways hijacked to make us rationalize things that we should not rationalize, and things that we should not be accepting of? Because I think that narrative of we're all evolving can be weaponized to say, oh, well, that person's suffering and that's just their karma that they're going through and they planned it before birth. And then you become passive. And I worry about that because there are a lot of good people who end up in a passive position. And I do think darkness, my sense of it is that there's an adversarial force that's manifesting in different ways, and it has to be resisted in some way. Otherwise it does its thing. And maybe it's resisted through shining a light on it. Maybe it's through our own transcendence of darkness. It probably happens in many ways, but it's an adversarial force. And then the other thing I wanted to say is on the notion of non-duality and duality. John, you mentioned that earlier, because this has been I've been going so back and forth in this in my journey, is I was completely dualistic because I was a materialist and there's no meaning to life. And then I went all the way to non-duality, which I think is the ultimate reality. But the danger in that is that you start to ignore duality and say, oh, well, Mark, why are you writing about evil now? I've had people say this to me. There is no evil. And I agree about that to some degree, but I disagree at the level of duality. There is dark and light. There is Mark and John and Serena. We are separate. We're separate and we're not separate together. And neither end can be ignored. Somehow, paradoxically, they coexist. At least that's the best I can come up with right now. So I just wanted to raise that because my mind currently is in this space of trying to reconcile all of these things and seeing the different perspectives emerge all over the place and seeing where I agree and disagree with people and trying to make sense of it.
But Mark, there is duality. There is evil. That is the reality of this physical planet we live on. But when you get to a place and you shift so completely, you're not in resistance to it. You talk about, fighting the darkness and stuff. It's not from going and resisting the darkness, because that's energy and it feeds it. It's from coming back into your empowered state of being. You know it. You don't bullshit about it, but you're allowing your truth to shine. And that's how this darkness is going to shift. It's already shifting on this planet in phenomenal ways. But, it's like you said, it's your journey. And that's the perfection. It's like your pain is the worst pain. And when people say to me, oh, well, I didn't have it like you, Serena. And I go, well, but you've had the worst pain you've ever had. And it's like, oh, yeah. And so the fact that you've come out of it is for cause for celebration, because a lot of people don't. So your journey is so perfect. But it's not about pretending it doesn't exist. There's definite evil on this planet. Absolutely.
I see the interpretation of things as evil. I just want to intuit what you said here, and I don't disagree that perception is valid. Now, the way that we're told to look at this is from many different ways. One, that it's an actual inevitability here and we can't do anything about it. The other would be that it's unity consciousness and Hitler went to heaven again, back to that. There is no hell, and so therefore everything's a chosen experience. The reconciliation part for me comes in the same way that when we talk about the contact phenomena, right? Like Serena, what you feel happened for you, which you see it from that perspective, which my darkness in my past, I feel the same way for, is it's a chosen experience. And this thing that Mark, we talked about my skepticism with this whole damn phenomenon that, I straddle the fence between, but I see all of it. I can feel both perspectives. That's part of one of my gifts here as well, is I get to see this. Part of the reconciliation challenge here for me is that people would choose this. What we view as people here, souls, would choose to go through these things. Serena has embraced this. She has said flat out that she chose this so that she could get all of it out in one lifetime. And I'll be damned, darling, you did it, you had to have. And so it's this idea. But then again, I intellectually will look back at this and say that I can bilocate a little bit. I can look at it from non-duality, but absolute duality. I can see the ebbs and flows, the extremes and experience we have here from a zero mark, just to David Dawkins' scale, the contraction and expansion, right? You could see that, but if you turn it sideways, that expansion is this way and contraction is that way, and you're at a 0 point, all those polar energies, are just pings of energies, but there's an XY axis to our awareness as well. It gives our vision of this place, and the way that I see it gives us an additional depth perspective. So we're no longer linear, moving on a 0 point this way between those two options, but now we have this a complete awareness that, oh my God, everything's awesome. And then this feeling of disconnectedness, not perhaps necessarily that we're disconnected, but we get the feeling of it and the depth of that. And then you can ping this between any of those things, right? You feel super enlightened, but very disconnected, or super enlightened and very high up, super contracted, same thing, right? And then there's degrees on this as we're visually, again, propelling through this sort of tunnel. It's with the new vision that we get, we offer ourselves an XY and a Z axis now, in addition to the XY that we're moving on. And so this, again, is sort of this balancing act. And again, from the highest perspectives I can give myself in the highest of meditations, I'm like, is this a prison planet? Is it all bullshit? Is it just an Archon soul trap? Have we been told these things by beautiful, amazing, convincing entities such as Serena? And she's sent here to throw us all off the path, and that there's actually a warrior cause for us to be taking up here, because it's almost like a spiritual Bolshevik revolution, sort of like Q, in the way that everyone's told, oh, it's all going to work out. We've got it handled for you. And just to sit back, and then you do nothing because you have faith in this thing that then shows up just to perpetuate more. And then you're born out of another body, and you may perhaps come back here and you're like, hang on, the same shit's still going on. I thought we were Bolshevik revolution. Oh, that wasn't a thing. Q, well, that no. And so you kind of get these faith in these things. Now, I also see this as a very expanded part that we're in. And I feel that where we are even having the damn conversation, there's been a lot of folks that have come before us that have tried to have these things, but you have to feel between what's occurred here this evening, between what we all engage on a daily basis. I mean, I sort of can take it for granted sometimes that these are exceptional perspectives that we're willing to entertain here and all sit together. That alone shows me closer to what we're talking about here, that it's an expansion, that it's a deliberate thing, and that the darkness needs to be here to have a light shown on it. And again, sort of this time period, and there's a lot of lenses I view this bitch through, that, the astrology and the Aquarius changeover. And so there's a lot of different factors that play in to my intuition to speak here. But that's sort of where I am at with it. But I completely see your point. I see all points here. And that's, again, my gift and my curse at the same time, because I don't have an answer for you other than you're all right. You're absolutely correct. John, the fears that you see, they're out there. And the way that you speak against them is helpful. You're absolutely correct. Mark, the reconciliation on this is going to be an intellectual challenge for you, because you have such a strong pull, but you have such a strong foot. In one world, you're the kite and the string at the same time. This is what I say about my wife. She's the string. I'm the kite. I'm the one up here just going, oh, she's like, yes, honey, I got you. You're both at the same time. So you've got this incredible balancing act that you do. You exist in and out of duality at the same time. It's all of these beautiful representations of ourselves here is how I choose to see it, because it definitely colors my experience. And if you really want to get to the crux of it, life is meaningless. It has only the meaning that you give it. And I will say that the tribe that we have here and the conversations we're having, that we're giving it a hell of a meaning and purpose. And we're all doing it with heart, not fear, and all out of love. And I'm just so grateful to know each and every one of you.
Ditto.
Yeah, ditto.
Well, I think we're going to wrap it on this one, guys. It's just been incredible. I know everyone's going to integrate and full of love. So thank you again. All the ways to find each and every one of you beautiful souls are going to be located down in the show notes. Thank you again for your time, guys. This is truly special.
Bye, you guys. Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you all.